This is the Dollemore Daily, and I'm Jesse Dollemore. Hey everybody, welcome back. Today I want to talk about Donald Trump's failure in this coronavirus debacle, but especially related to his lack of planning and preparedness for something that anyone could have seen coming. And it relates to the disparity in health outcomes for African Americans in this country. Black women are 3 times more likely to die because of pregnancy-related complications than white women. There are all kinds of metrics that pointed to something bad that was going to happen related to the coronavirus. And Donald Trump was unprepared. Today I'm going to talk about a question that Yamiche Alcindor, who I've talked about before, who is an intrepid and fearless reporter for PBS, she asked Donald Trump a question the other day about this very thing. But before I get into that, listen, it is obvious, anybody who's been paying attention for more than 5 minutes knows the abysmal record and history of the way this country, which I love and aspire for it to be better, but the history and record of this country and its treatment of blacks. Obviously, there was slavery, but beyond slavery, after the Emancipation Proclamation and after the slaves were freed, there was convict leasing, and then on into modernity, there was redlining and Jim Crow and just horrible treatment. Treatment for which I believe we as a nation owe reparations. And possibly into $2 trillion or more dollars. Another topic for another time. If you'd like to see what I have to say about that, just search Dollemore reparations on YouTube. We started the Declaration of Independence, Thomas Jefferson, a loathsome enslaver of human beings, wrote, without irony, apparently, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men were created equal, and that they were endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, chief among them, life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness." Well, not all men, not all women, not all humans, apparently, were created equal in the eyes of Thomas Jefferson and many of our founders, because slaves were not created equal. They were able to be owned. People were able to be owned when this country was founded. And it is because of that pattern, that history, that record of abuse, of neglect on our part, that African Americans in this country have a disparity in health outcome. I'm going to play the question from Yamiche Alcindor and Donald Trump's response or non-response, and then we're going to talk about this.
Please.
Can I ask you also about the African American disparities?
Yes,
I have
sure.
a question for you and a question for the Surgeon General.
Sure.
For you, Mr. President, we know that these health disparities have existed for a long time among African Americans, Latinos, and other people of color. Why did the administration possibly have a plan directed at those communities to prevent high death rates, knowing that the health disparities were there?
Well, we do have a plan, and one of the things I'm most proud about is what I've been able to do for the African American community. The lowest job numbers in the history of our country. This was
for the virus, of course.
Just before the virus came. Well, I'm just saying, because, this has been here for 3 weeks, right? So just before, African American community had the lowest unemployment, the best employment numbers. More African American people and communities have been thriving. If you look at our opportunity zones and what we did, Tim Scott, who's fantastic, a fantastic senator, came to me, opportunity zones, more jobs for African Americans than ever before, better health care than they've ever had before. All of these things. The Surgeon General spoke to it, and he spoke to it, I thought, really brilliantly. I found it very interesting what he said.
So she asks a very simple question. We know that these health disparities have existed for a long time among African Americans, Latinos, and other people of color. Why didn't the administration possibly have a plan directed at those communities to prevent high death rates, knowing that these health disparities were there? So the question is, why didn't the administration have a plan? Donald Trump opens up that slit under his mouth that he uses to cram greasy burgers into, and he starts talking about, well, we do have a plan, and unemployment, blah, 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 blah. Rambling like an incoherent moron about unemployment, ignoring the question, ignoring the very important question about why he did nothing and is still doing nothing. It's one thing to trip up and make a mistake and have dropped the ball. But once it's brought to your attention, come up with a plan. Do something. Look at some of these figures. This is from the Washington Post, the April 7th article. In Milwaukee County, home to Wisconsin's largest city, African Americans account for about 70% of the dead, but are just 26% of the population. The disparity is similar in Louisiana, where 70% of the people who have died were black, although African Americans make up just 32% of the state's population. And in Michigan, where the state's 845, now these numbers were from April 7th, where the state's 845 reported deaths outrank all but New York's and New Jersey's, African Americans account for 33% of the cases and roughly 40% of the deaths, despite comprising only 14% of the population. The state does not offer a breakdown of race by county or city, but more than a quarter of deaths occurred in Detroit, where African Americans make up 79% of the population. And in Illinois, a disparity nearly identical to Michigan's exists at a state level, but the picture becomes far starker when looking at data just from Chicago, where black residents have died at a rate 6 times higher that of whites. Of the city's 118 reported deaths, nearly 70% were black. And Donald Trump wants to talk about unemployment. Donald Trump wants to ignore a critical question. If you want to be a leader, Donald Trump, you don't get to just play one on TV. You got to do leader stuff. You got to take the lumps. Admit to your mistakes when you make them. And yours are plenty, brother. Yours are plenty. Look at this chart. Just to put a graphic on this. Milwaukee County, Wisconsin. 26% of the population is black, and 73% of the deaths are made up by black folks. Chicago, 32 and 67. This is alarming and unacceptable, and we've got a dingus in the White House, a dangerous, narcissistic goon who does nothing, who doesn't care. He does not care. While he's testing everyone who comes into any near proximity to him for the coronavirus to ensure he doesn't get it, which I don't fault. We want our president to be well, a president. He's allowing now tens of thousands at this point of Americans to die with little concern for the missteps on their part. But what do we expect? What do we expect? Watch, I'm going to play this clip. This is from recount.com. You may have seen this before. It's very brief. But his ineptitude, his failure to act, his downplaying what is happening where it relates to this pandemic. From the very beginning, it's a hoax. We've got it under control. It's going to be cured. It's going to miraculously go away. Watch this, and then we'll wrap it up.
We have it totally under control. It's one person coming in from China. We think we have it very well under control. We pretty much shut it down. Coming in from China. You know, in April, supposedly it dies with the hotter weather. When it gets warm, historically, that has been able to kill the virus.
People are getting better. They're all getting better.
And the 15 within a couple of days is going to be down to close to zero. It's going to disappear. One day, it's like a miracle. It will disappear, and you'll be fine. They're going to have vaccines, I think, relatively soon. Not only the vaccines, but the therapies. Therapies is sort of another word for cure. We're talking about very small numbers in the United States. Our numbers are lower than just about anybody. It's really working out. And a lot of good things are going to happen. And we are responding with great speed and professionalism. It's going to go away. Yeah, no, I don't take responsibility at all. We're going to all be great. We're going to be so good. This came up, we came up so suddenly. This is a pandemic. I felt it was a pandemic long before it was called a pandemic. All you had to do is look at other countries. The coronavirus, you know that, right? Coronavirus. And this is their new hoax. We're 15 people in this massive country. And because of the fact that we went early. We could have had a lot more than that. We're doing great. Our country is doing so great.
Donald Trump has failed the United States as a whole. So why on earth would we suspect or expect him to take up for a marginalized population that he doesn't give a shit about in African Americans? Why? This is exactly why it matters that we have a diverse representative government. This is why representation matters. Why having black members of Congress, black members of the cabinet, a black president, a black vice president. This is why it matters to have women involved. Because white dudes making the decisions doesn't always go well because they look at the world through white guy eyes. And if you have a white guy president, which it looks like we're going to have again, at least pick one who has some semblance of empathy and an ability to surround himself by people who are driven by an empathetic response. We don't got that. We've got a dipshit who thinks only about himself and his well-being. What financial metrics will be changed by what decisions he makes. Touting drugs that are unproven as of yet because they're in his portfolio. I'd love to know what you think. As always, you can call, leave me a brief voicemail with your opinion or a question, 714-576-4054. You can always email daily@dollemore.com. And as always, if I bring value to you, if I provide any kind of value whatsoever, I would encourage you to consider becoming a channel member here on YouTube. There's a button down here below that says join. You can click it and it tells you all about how to do it. It's not an automatic join. You got to go through the steps. But I would, if I bring value to you, I would encourage you to join, support independent media like this, voices like mine that you're not going to hear everywhere. So up until next time, until next time, I appreciate you guys. Be genuine and take care of one another.